Hey, it's Chris. This is the freaking golden age of crowdfunding. Don't let anyone sell you otherwise on it. Earlier this month, we literally had about 30 games simultaneously over $50,000, and probably 15 of them over like $150,000. That's freaking insane. That is a ton amount of money. So for all those people saying out there that the board game bubble, a crowdfunding bubble is going to burst, I think they're wrong. But what do you need to know? What are some games that are making it possible for this and why? Let's talk for a minute. Games that should be on your radar regardless. Games that make you excited because they're awesome. Let's talk. Now, I'm just going to show you a few of these reasons. Regardless of how you feel about them, you have to be excited by what's coming out because competition is breeding a better product. Whether that's Backerkit, Gamefound, or even Kickstarter. And say what you will, CMON has not always put out their best foot forward in terms of a variety of issues, but I will argue that Cthulhu Death May Die Fear of the Unknown is 2.0 version of Cthulhu Death May Die, Marvel United X-Men versus Marvel United as the original. In the sense that this one just appears to be better. They have taken one of their core product lines, one of their best successes over the last half decade, and they have made it better. They have made it more enticing. They have given, actually, numerically speaking, more. Not that you necessarily need more, that's a whole nother conversation, but for the same price. It's not an inflated price. The all-in for this was $210. Pledge level was still $100 for the value, which last time with the Unspeakable Pledge was amazing. $210 for all the new stuff. Now, that's not including the old stuff, which, over that completely by itself. But you could get a complete, never needing anything else, just like with Marvel United, with the new stuff, even a fraction of the new stuff, without any of the old stuff and not be missing out on anything. And that's a significant upgrade because CMON has not always done that with the previous games, campaigns, and IPs. And so I give them kudos for that. I give them a lot of kudos. At the same time, it's still a plastic-filled big box of junk. It is. That I'm going to own because I'm a backer of this too. So don't get me wrong. I'm not despairing this. I think this is going to be better and I'm putting my money where my mouth is. But you have to be excited that CMON even is having to step up their game to see what else is out there to stay with the competition. Next up, again, this is probably my other big sleeper hit. This is the one that I think is going to be comparable, or even frankly speaking, up to the par of at least, better than at least the two others that have come out recently, in terms of, I'd say, Calico and Verdant. I would put this up there in the lines with Cascadia right now. Again, I'm putting that out there as a premonition because I personally love tile laying. I personally love real time. This reminds me of Bullet with a tile laying aspect, right? And that's why I'm excited. Flat Out Games has flat out delivered. And we're going from one spectrum to the other here for $29 freaking dollars plus whatever the small shipping cost is, and you won't beat that at retail. You won't. You'll also get a little bit of exclusive promos or promo little mini expansion pack, which again isn't the make it or break it. You know me, I toss promos out with the bathwater, but it's a nice little incentive thank you from Flat Out Games. And I love the real-time asymmetric trying to be as tactical as you can elements that go along with this. I absolutely love this concept. It's competitive, but it fits the niche of I want to play something in half an hour that's light, I can explain to anybody, has a little bit of a rush element, it's not going to lead to AP, and you can just have fun with it because that's the main thing. And I love supporting these companies however I can, but especially on crowdfunding, if it makes sense to, and that's why Flat Out Games, it just, again, flat out makes sense to do so with Fit to Print. The other one that's right up my alley, I just have to talk about too, is City of Kings. We're talking about the other game set in the Isle of Cats land, and this is Race to the Raft. Now, this is something, again, it's different. It's tile laying in a cooperative way. So we're staying with the tile laying, but boy howdy, when was the last time you played a tile laying cooperative game, right? And that is just amazingly different, and it is just unique. City of Kings Frank has really done an amazing job of building up the product line for his company. And this is just another one that stands on its own, that you can get into, that you can get out of, whatever you put in, but it also gives you an incentive to back it on crowdfunding, right? You're getting some extras. And I love the fact that they also are doing miniature surplus. What I mean by that is you're not being forced to get the plastic. You have the awesome wood pieces in the first place. But if you want the extras, you can, which is what I always prefer in these campaigns. It doesn't shoehorn you into one or the other. Plus, 81 freaking scenarios, you don't need that much variability. You don't need much of that replayability. And by the time you get to the 81, Chris, you're saying, okay, I've played all 81, Chris, what am I gonna do? I guarantee you don't remember how to play the beginning ones. So you can go back and play them. You'll have forgotten them by then. And that's just, again, rewarding. And this is why you back it, because things like this campaign also have more stuff, more interaction than anything you'll see at retail. And so that's why I'm also supporting this one. Now, I'm going to be amiss if I don't include Oathsworn on this video. Oathsworn is Oathsworn. I mean, this is potentially the game to dethrone Gloomhaven. I'll say that because it is riding the massive tidal wave tsunami of hype for good reason. Too much good reason? I don't know yet. It's going to be a very interesting test of the market, because this game is going to be only, just like with Gloomhaven, but even more to a closer extent, for people that love this sort of thing. And so you're going to have a selection bias just from that aspect. But even within those very, very cramped selection bias, it really has a good chance of doing that because of how cool it is. So will it stand up over the test of time? What new game in 2023 is going to surpass this? Just like this surpassed Ark Nova, just like Ark Nova surpassed Dwellings of Elderville, just like Dwellings of Elderville surpassed Gloomhaven, probably Frosthaven actually. But you know, that seems to be a yearly trend now, whether it's on retail or crowdfunding. For all you naysayers, 65 hours is more than enough. More than enough. It is. People love it. It's a solid game. Again, I give kudos because they don't shoehorn you into getting the plastic. You can get the standee version if you're on Team Liege, like I am, because, I mean, it's Team Liege, so I have to be on Team Liege. It's just a quality product. Shadowborn Games is putting out something. They're sticking to their guns. They didn't try and just throw in a bunch of extra content that was half-baked here. You're getting what you got the first time around. You're paying more for it because of costs, but because they probably underpriced it the first time around too. Don't take my word for it. Take all the other 30 reviews or so that are out on Board Game Geek that are saying the exact same thing. So check that out if you want. Now we're going to talk about Slay the Spire because I'm not sure I'm going to end up with this one at this point. At the same time, what it makes me super excited about is we're seeing now some better video game imports onto the crowdfunding side of things. And if they can successfully transition this over to the tabletop with the great success that I hope that the video game had that can be replicated now, it makes me very excited from that aspect of things, because then you're going to see better games and IPs being willing to come to the tabletop, but you're not going to see necessarily half-baked ones. That has been the concern over the past half decade as well, is they seem to be very hit or miss. There seem to be more misses in general speak than ones that people go, wow, that was a really, really awesome game. Not only on its own, but also related to the original, right? You can count those pretty much on one hand. And that's the unfortunate side of things. But if this can be done with Contention Games and them taking basically all year to basically build up this hype train, because this was announced about a year ago that they were coming to crowdfunding, and then it was delayed and pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And I mean that in a good way, actually, because then the end product is matching what it hopefully needs to be. And you'll say what you want, $100, and you know, whether or not the minutia and the upkeep is worth it, I don't know. But you have to be excited to see that people are willing to venture out on this and to, again, give you something different with a mechanism that we're used to in a slightly different manner. And that's why this is exciting, because this breeds new innovation as well. And I just want to see more. And the fact that this is successful and seems to be doing well is going to beget more of it in the future. So there you go. That's my thought on that. Unconscious Mind. Now, this one is the sleeper hit because this one is sleeper hit. I can't even try and do this. I'm not that good at puns, folks. I don't script this. And this is the most recently launched on this list. But you have to talk about it because Fantasia Games is setting the bar for sort of these middling combinatorial games, if you will. And what I mean by that is I mean that as a very positive, right? Because it took the spin, the very early edge in the spin on deck building and worker placement with Endless Winter Paleo Americans. And now they're venturing into more of a rondel, action programming, worker placement, engine building, right? Like all of those things don't go together, right? We've seen worker placement, we see engine building, we see rondel, we see engine building, we see action programming, we see 3 of those 4, we see 2 of those 4 all together all the time. But all 4 of those, that's where the trickiness comes in, because you can't just smash these mechanisms together and get a good product, right? It's not stir it up, put it in the kitchen sink, throw it at the wall and see what sticks. That's not gonna stick nowadays. You can't have these half-baked products going to crowdfunding. Crowdfunding, and why this is the golden age, is because this is not the crowdfunding of former years where, you know what, you were lucky to have a prototype or 2, lucky to have a rule book and maybe a playthrough or 2. Now, if you don't have half a dozen, things are, looked at as being strange. And Fantasia Games made it very clear that they are following in the steps of potentially like leader games, in the sense that you're getting a better deal on crowdfunding. Say what you will about the price point. So if you are going to get it, they are going to offer you a significant discount. And that cannot also be understated, because nowadays we are seeing less and less reason from a gameplay standpoint to back it in terms of exclusivity with the CMONs, and more deluxeifications, which again doesn't offer you gameplay, but it offers you just deluxeifications. And to have a medium here that is neither the divisive of the gameplay loss if you don't back it, nor does it raise as much of a price point issue when you bling the heck out of everything, but you can just get the gameplay for a lesser price. I kind of like that. Now, I'll say I'm not a huge fan of throwing in the art packs and the soundtracks and all of these things and the t-shirts and the plushies. I'm looking at you, Flamecraft. But you can still get it here with or without, so I give a lot of credit there as well. And this one is another one that has a lot of people excited about, as potentially already talking about it as the game I mentioned earlier as the best of 2023. But it's got enough of the interaction, it's got enough of the differences, but it's not bringing the overhead of something else that I talked about last week of Pampero or a Lacerda, that it's going to necessarily edge out gamers like myself who are not comfortable always with that level of intricate complexity in terms of long-term strategy, because this is more tactical. And so to have a nice medium to get people like me who are on the fence actually interested in it, that, folks, is what you call a gateway game. And I mean that, again, by the biggest compliment I can give it, of making me want to delve or stick my toes into that water. So that's an amazing idea and concept if it can do that for not just me, 5,100 other people from that aspect. I'm gonna mention this. This one, I'll be frank with you, I'm not a fan of the campaign. This is offering none of the things I just mentioned in terms of gameplay or price reduction, and it's offering just deluxeifications in terms of foil cards. But I have to put this out there, as this is one of the best games to come out in the last decade, or potentially ever. This is probably the best co-op game to ever come out. I'll put that out there right now. And so the fact that they can still get $1 million by the strength of their gameplay previously, without practically any gameplay or actual content or rule book on this page, speaks to the standing testament that we now have in the people producing these games that we love, right? We don't need 16 different videos or 17 different previews or anything like that. We're willing to put our money because we support these people, because we know that they've got a good track record. And that, again, was not where things were 5 or 6 years ago on crowdfunding. A lot of it was still up in the air and a lot of it was all over the place. I mean, this is going to be a great game. I don't have any doubts. It's where you want to spend your money. But again, it's another campaign with little bling, little extras, and still getting the funds because of faith in the product. And that's Spirit Island's MO to begin with. And I love it. Will I end up getting the game? Yeah, probably not on crowdfunding though, because I'm okay with missing out on some of those things in the first place. And now we've also seen companies like this saying, you know what, it's completely okay if you miss out, even if you support us later. That's completely okay with us. And this is another example of that. We're going to hop over to Gamefound here for a minute because there's a couple games I need to talk about on here very briefly for same reasons. 20 Strong from Chip Theory Games. They're going out on a limb. They're going dice. They're going dice heavy. They're going solo, which is not unusual, but they're going solo without a whole lot of steam, like I mentioned with the other ones. And with their MO, just like Leaders, you're going to get it at a better price. You know that about Chip Theory. You know that it's going to be better. You know it's going to be a solid product. The more the question just always is it for you? And so the fact that you can get 3 for $65, including shipping, I mean, is a really good deal. And so I really like supporting companies like this. And this is one where I'm really hoping, this is hopium speaking, that they're going to be giving us a multiplayer version of this in the near future. So I'm going in on this. I'm getting my 3 decks. I'm supporting this. I'm trying to be more of a solo player, or a solo player with a game that my kids can play alongside of me, with a challenge system and some uniqueness that's going to be replayable. And this offers all of that in a small nutshell. And it's almost the button shy, similar version of Chip Theory, if you will. And again, to see them being willing to adapt and not just stay with the 1 or 2 or 3 products that they have stayed and tried and true, and just, you know, do that ad nauseum, I really give them a lot of credit, which again is just something different that we're seeing success with, because people are willing to go out and be a little bit avant-garde, if you will. So I like this. I love this. I think it needs to be celebrated. The other thing we have to talk about is the rise of app-based systems. Now, I'm not going to talk about the 3 or 4 campaign games that have just finished on crowdfunding or are currently going that are including this, but I'm going to talk about Lucky Duck games because of the Destiny system, which has really, really, really done well. And you'll notice that both of these last 2 games, again, we're talking almost $500,000 with a 20 strong $65 pledge, and $500,000 here with an expansion that requires a base game of an app-based system that is incredibly solid, and that Lucky Duck staked a lot of their time and effort on a couple years ago, and people were sort of like poo-pooing it, saying this isn't going to last the test of time. Well, here we go, the second round of expansions for them, and it's definitely staying the test of time. Now they offer a little deluxifications, they offer some bundles, and do you want that or not? And that's okay. But it's a system that is here to stay. It's an intervention that's here to stay. And it's just, what else can you incorporate? Because now we're seeing it with this sort of skill check system with a narrative base. We saw it with Dark Quarter as their co-op version. We're seeing it more and more in the narrative side of things that's getting away from the books that are, you know, going the route of like role player adventures in Madara. But we're seeing it being incorporated across the board, which should, frankly speaking, make you a little bit nervous, but at the same time opens up possibilities to things that you couldn't do previously within the constraints of the regular tabletop. Say what you will and say whatever side you fall on in this, it's doing things, allowing us to do things that we couldn't do previously. And so again, I think it's cool from that sense. The system has proven to be one that hits well with people and is very solid. I have no qualms or disagreement that it is solid, having played the base game through myself. And so it is good for what it is. And if you like it, there's going to be more and more and more of that. And it's going to work really well for you. And you're going to enjoy this one just as much as you probably have with the others. So there you go. There you go. Those are my thoughts on the golden age of crowdfunding, with just the most recent of recent examples, with the highest of highs, not to mention all of the other ones, like I said, over $100,000 or even over $50,000, which, you know, doesn't sound like a lot nowadays, but is absolutely tremendous, because you have small companies building upon that, building and building and building upon it, like Flat Out Games, where all of a sudden they're getting that much based on a very small pledge level. A lot of active support. And that's what we want to see, is more diversity. more inclusion, and just more across the board that is sort of pushing the boundaries of what we know and what we're comfortable with, at the same time making us excited too. So there you go. Those are my thoughts, my highlights of recent games exploring the golden age of crowdfunding that we're in. Thanks for watching. Stay classy. See you around.